We have a tax gap and we have to make it up. So who are they going to make it up with? You, the middle class. They can't make it up with the rich and the poor. You're the bulk of the money in this country. You have the bulk of the transactions. They're coming for you. Janet Yellen, as you know, is the Secretary of Treasury. She used to be the head of the Fed. She is another radical disaster. And one of the things they're proposing in this massive monstrosity bill that will destroy your lifestyle and that of your family. That's the bottom line. That I touched on earlier is this $600 transaction. Let's say you have a checking account and you get a check for $600 and you put it in. The IRS says, we want to be able to monitor that. Or let's say you make a payment of $600 or you withdraw $600. The IRS saying, we want to monitor that too. And we want the ability to audit you on it and ask you questions about it. And everybody said, wait a minute, the hell is this? You're looking for tax fraud? That's not tax fraud. While we want millionaires and billionaires aren't messing around with $600 checks. I mean, it's just appalling. And she's questioned about this by Senator Loomis. So let's take a look at this. Go.
Banks do not work for the IRS. This is invasive of privacy. Wyoming's people literally will find alternatives to traditional banks just to thwart IRS access to their personal information, not because they're trying to hide anything, but because they're not willing to share everything. My question is, are you aware of how unnecessary this regulatory burden is? Do you distrust the American people so much that you need to know when they bought a couch or a cow? I am astounded by what you're supporting and proposing. I think it's invasive. I think privacy for individuals is getting ignored. And I think treating the American people like they are subjects of the government is unconscionable.
Well, Senator Loomis, I really disagree with the assessment that you have, and I think you misunderstand the proposal. Banks already report directly to the IRS the interest that they pay on accounts when it exceeds $10. And this is not a proposal.
Now, whoa. Banks report interest you earn over $10 on accounts, which is absurd, by the way, because depending on your income bracket, depending on all the income you have, when it's added all together, you may owe taxes. You may owe taxes. Also, under the Patriot Act, any transaction of $10,000 or more is reported to the government. One has nothing to do with the other. We're talking about transactions of $600, not interest, which is potentially taxable, and not the Patriot Act. Go ahead.
Proposal to provide detailed transaction-level data by banks to the IRS. It is a proposal to add 2 additional pieces of easily ascertained information on to the 1099 INT form that banks already file, namely the aggregate inflows into the account during the year and the aggregate outflows. And I think it's important to recognize—
the aggregate inflows and the aggregate outflows on the 1099 form that banks have to report. First of all, the banks have already said this is going to be an enormous burden to track this, and it is. But number 2, this is not the kind of information that the IRS currently receives or monitors. If they choose to do an audit on you, then they have access to whatever they want. But they don't audit most people. So what they're doing here is they're poking around in people's checking accounts and savings accounts or money market accounts. If they see a movement of $600 or more, there is no defense for this, none whatsoever. Go ahead.
It's important to recognize that we have a tax gap that's estimated at $7 trillion over the next decade.
I don't know what that means. We have a tax gap of over $7 trillion. Okay, so what? Maybe you ought to spend a little bit less money. That would help with your tax gap. So at one side of her mouth, she says, this is no big deal, that the senator misunderstands what they're doing. And then the other side of her mouth, what does she say? We have a tax gap of over $7 trillion, so we need to know about these $600 transactions. Well, where are they going to get the $7 trillion? I guess they think they're going to get it from you because you're apparently a crook. And so they want to squeeze you and they want to threaten you with audits or they want to audit you. So on the one hand, she wants you to think that this is passive, it's no big deal. On the other hand, she says, what? We have a tax gap and we have to make it up. And you give the IRS this kind of power and they're going to abuse it, they're going to exploit it. They want to add $85 billion to the IRS budget. What else do they want to do? They want to add between 50 and 60,000 new agents. That's intended to abuse you. They're coming for you. That's what's going on. They believe you're a bunch of crooks. And so they want to threaten you, they want you to get letters, and they want to audit you. That's a lot more people than you need to audit billionaires, I can tell you that.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to LevinTV.com and subscribe now.